Obrigada.
De nada. Com vocês, Beth Kanter.
Okay. When I arrived, this is my first time in South America, my first time in Brazil, and I didn't know any Portuguese words. So the first word I learned was obrigada. Okay. The second word, phrase was água com gás. Okay. So I will not be thirsty. And I learned a word this morning, a very important word, amor. Okay. Amor. Okay. So, okay. Okay, it has been a long day, and I have been dying to do this, and I apologize to my translator for going off script. But I want everybody in this section of the auditorium to stand up. Levite? Oh, I know a fourth word. Levite! Okay, all right. I'm not quite sure. What is a Brazilian stretch? Will we do a samba? Yes? Okay. I want everyone in this row to follow me, okay? I don't see you moving, all right? And you have to copy what I'm doing. Okay? All right, you guys need to keep doing this. And now I'm moving here, okay? Levite. Okay, and you need to do this. Okay? All right? And you need to keep doing it. All right? Levite. Levite. And you need to do this. Okay? Okay? And then when I move like this, you need to copy them. Okay? So copy what they're doing. You copy what they're doing. Comprende? And you copy what they're doing. Okay? Great. Now everybody sit down. Okay? Stand up. Levite. 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 Sit down. Okay. All right, everybody awake? All right. So I want you to tell me what is the word in Portuguese to sit down. Can you all say it? Seita? Seita. Okay, levite. You in the back, too. Levite. Levite. Seita. Okay. Okay, great. I spend most of my time as a trainer, a master trainer, and I believe that being active helps us think. That's very important. And I've had a chance to train NGOs literally all over the world. And that group in India on the staircase, we were at a training for 4 days. And they would serve a wonderful lunch, wonderful food, and everybody would come back from the training, and I noticed them getting very sleepy. So I would make them do Bollywood dancing, and they all woke up. And by the 4th day, I was running out of training exercises to give the group to wake up. And then I noticed the beautiful staircase in the hotel. It was a double staircase, 3 stories high. And I made them do 5 laps up and down the staircase. But they came ready to learn. So I have worked for 33 years in the nonprofit sector. And 20 years ago to the day, I discovered the internet. And I was very honored to have a front row seat at the creation of a field, how nonprofits can use the internet for mission-driven work. And so I applied for a job for an online network called ArtsWire, which was to help artists get on the internet. And when I applied for the job, I told them, I don't know a modem from a microwave, but I know how to learn, and I know how to transfer my knowledge. And so I think my career has been not as a technologist, but more as a professional public learner and transfer of knowledge to others. And I think networked learning can be a lot of fun. Mentioned my new book. I'm very pleased. It was published this last month. And I believe in giving back. I believe the importance of giving back, and that even if I give a little, it can help change somebody's world. It doesn't take much. And I am so honored to have adopted two beautiful children, two orphans from Cambodia. And I feel that it was very important for us as a family and me personally to give back to this country that brought us our beautiful children. So I am donating my royalties to send that young lady, who still lives in Cambodia, to college. So her name is Kyo Savan. And because the book is on measurement, I've chosen a civil engineering major who is number 3 in her class in technology and math. And so when I saw her this summer in Cambodia, and she calls me Mommy, she said, thank you. But yeah, I would like, and she told me, I would like to go to graduate school in the United States. I think maybe Harvard, Yale, MIT, or maybe Stanford. And I said, I'm going to have to sell a lot of books. But the idea here is, education for this woman will transform her life. And in Cambodia, college is not that expensive, and it's sort of a gift. And I know that if I can make a difference, and I can inspire other people in my network to make a small gift, then we collectively can make an impact on society. So I recently had a chance to go back to Cambodia. And I hadn't been there since 2007. That's what I looked like in 2007. And I was there because along the way I had connected with bloggers from Cambodia because I wanted to learn about the culture for my children. And they invited me to come to a conference very much like this in 2007. It was the first ever Cambodia Bloggers Summit, but they had no money. So I was the first person to raise money on Twitter. And I used Twitter, and I raised enough money to help them sponsor the conference and to get over there and teach 300 young people about blogging. And when we were on the phone, well, it wasn't the phone, it was Skype. I was Skyping them before, and I said, what do you want me to bring from America? And they said, tech t-shirts. So I started to tweet about tech t-shirts on Twitter. And every time I tweeted, somebody would tweet back, oh, I have some in my closet. I work at Google. I have some. I'm at Yahoo. And before I knew it, I had 300 t-shirts on my doorstep ready to pack and go to Cambodia. So when I went back, we went back for a homecoming trip. Those are my kids. They don't look like that anymore. We went back, and the internet has dramatically changed. When I was there in 2007, there were satellite connections, and it was the rainy season, and it would rain in the afternoon, and the satellites would fill up with water, and there would go the internet. No internet. But it's all changed. You can even get, on your mobile phone, there's Wi-Fi all over, 3G. I was in very rural areas and could get 3G connections, a vast change from just 5 years. We did some visiting. That's the first student that I sent to college in Cambodia. My blog readers did. That's Lang Saparoth. She got to meet my kids. But you know what? They had connected beforehand on Facebook. Massive change from 2007. And I also reconnected with the bloggers. And that was in the capital, Phnom Penh. And we were going to take a taxi ride 6 hours up to Angkor Wat temples, to see the holy place in Cambodia. But they're crazy drivers. Crazy, crazy, crazy drivers. So I asked my Cambodian blogger friend, Monk Ho, to write a note for me to give to the taxi driver. And in Khmer, in the language. And it says, "Dear taxi driver, we are not in a hurry to get to Siem Reap. Please drive safely and slowly. My most precious possession, my children, are in the car, and we want to live a long life." And the taxi driver laughed, and he drove very safely, and we got to Siem Reap, and we got blessed by a monk. It's a Cambodian priest. And then we had to go back, and we had a different taxi driver. So this is what it looked like along the road. It was very frightening. So what did I do? I pulled out my phone and started looking on Facebook to distract myself from this very unsafe driving. And then I noticed that the driver was talking on his cell phone while he was trying to pass oncoming traffic. And I didn't like that. So I posted on Facebook, "I wish I had a sign in Khmer, in Cambodian language, that said, 'Stop talking on your cell phone while you're driving.'" And within 2 minutes, I got one from my Cambodian bloggers' friends. I tapped the driver on the shoulder, and he stopped using his cell phone. And needless to say, I'm standing here right now. Made it back safely. So the point in all of this is very simple. It's not about the tools. It's how you use them to impact on-the-ground change. And we know that these tools are having a change in our personal lives, and that our work in social change is increasingly dependent on networks. And I know some of these have been referenced by Simon. Other stories from here in Brazil and elsewhere have been talked about yesterday and today. So networks are increasingly important to our work in social change. Whether they're networks of people self-organizing like the Arab Spring, Occupy Wall Street, whether they're networks of organizations like REAMP, which is a group of environmental NGOs coordinating around environmental issues, or whether they are the platforms like Kickstarter, you were talking about crowdfunding, or Wikipedia. You know, the tools, when the tools, and they have become boring, then they become socially interesting, as Clay Shirky would say. So my first book talked about what do NGOs do? How do NGOs work in this networked environment? What does this mean for NGOs? So how many of you work with an NGO? If you raise your hand. Okay, levite. Levite, because I got to count. Levite, stand up if you work for an NGO. Let's see how many of you are in the room. Okay. All right, stand if you do. Okay, so I'd say about maybe a third of the audience. Okay, so in my first book, I talked a lot about, we can't do it alone. Organizations have to stop working in isolation and work more like networks. So it was change from the inside out. So this is what a traditional nonprofit might look at like. A staff person, 1, 2, maybe many, standing behind a firewall, hiding behind a logo, and reaching out into isolation to reach a social change goal. So that is maybe a traditional nonprofit. And the change was to go to something like this, okay, where there are networks of staff reaching out to their professional networks. The firewall becomes more transparent and starts to fade. And they reach out to other networks of people and organizations collectively working together to solve social change goals. But going from that to that is not like going from that to that, because it's about change. Think about when you personally want to make a change in your life. You want to lose some weight. You're going to stop buying bottled water and use your own water. You're going to start walking, riding your bike to work. Think about how hard it is to actually make that change. But when you have a whole organization, it becomes even harder. So in the book, I talked about network nonprofits that kind of naturally work in that networked way, and organizations that need to change, that they needed to be network nonprofits before they could start doing the work of nonprofits. And so there were some natural network nonprofits, and those that started off as fortresses. Okay? Let me describe what a fortress is. A fortress is maybe an organization that is very secretive, and if they do their plan, they will lock the staff up in a room for 3 days. They will not consult their stakeholders, and they will create the perfect or God's strategic plan. Or they might have very complicated work processes, okay, very bureaucratic, we say, and it might take them 6 months to write a press release. And if they send out the press release with a typo, God forbid. So I'm exaggerating, right? I'm exaggerating, but that's a fortress. And one of the reasons I wrote the book is because we saw a lot of fortress organizations out there, and yet networks of passionate people, like all of you that are sitting here who wanted to do something. I called them free agents. See, like that guy, he has the t-shirt. He's a free agent. And a free agent is an individual who could do the work of an NGO, mobilize people, raise money, call attention to an issue outside of a formal organization. And what we saw happening is free agents were crashing into the walls of fortresses. So there's the free agent, there's the fortress. And here, let me tell you a story about the first time that I talked about this concept in public 2 years ago. I met this guy named Sean Ahmed, Uncultured, on Twitter. And he's a young person, passionate about ending global poverty, particularly in Bangladesh. And he has created a whole social network in the palm of his hand with his videos. He has like 1 million followers on Twitter. He has many, many people following on YouTube. Very, very passionate guy. So when I was talking about the book, and I was in a room full of nonprofit leaders, including someone from the American Red Cross, he got up and he grabbed the mic from me. And he pointed his hand and he said, "Social media, it's not my problem. It's you fortresses. You're the problem. I reached out to you, Red Cross," and he actually pointed his finger at the Red Cross. "I wanted to help during the Haiti earthquake. I wanted to mobilize my network, help you fundraise, but you just dismissed me." And then he went off and he wrote about 5 blog posts criticizing the Red Cross, saying, fortresses. He was very frustrated. But Wendy Harmon, who was the social media person at the Red Cross, was in the audience, and she just didn't let that go. She saw the possibilities, and she called him up on the phone. She left comments on his blog post and talked about, well, let's explore working together. And they had some discussions, and they came up with a project that they both felt comfortable working on. And he has become one of their ambassadors, even winning the contest to be chosen to go to the Davos World Economic Forum, and he talked about the Red Cross. So things have gotten a bit better. Many more nonprofits are realizing the value of working with free agents, and free agents are learning how to approach nonprofits to help them do the kinds of things that need to be done, like fundraising, mobilizing. He's also worked with Save the Children, and this is a pretty powerful story. He worked with a network called Nerd Fighters, okay? Thousands of young people who want to fight social justice, and they've raised thousands of dollars for Save the Children, essentially introducing Save the Children, a big fortress, less so, to a whole new network of people and supporters. There are many free agents out there. You know, in the U.S. we have Mark Horvath. How many of you know Hardly Normal on Twitter? Look him up. Give him a shout out if you're on Twitter. Say, @Kanter, Kanter, is talking about you. Now, this man, formerly a homeless person without a home, saw that the plight of homeless people initially in the U.S. was being ignored, and he took his mobile phone and made movies about it, put them on YouTube, started getting the attention of corporations like PepsiCo, Hanes, got Hanes to donate socks. Ford Motor Company actually then funded his trip across the country to collaborate, to collect their stories, and to collaborate with homeless agencies. And he's gone on to form his own nonprofit, very much a network nonprofit. And you know what? You have free agents here in Brazil. In fact, many of you just heard the story this afternoon, and I was hoping I could call her up. And I know that there are many unanswered questions, but I heard of her story and was really inspired. She saw a need, and she took the step to fulfill that need by making a difference. You know, lots of these, differences add up. Small differences add up. So what I'd like you to do, this is the interactive portion of of our session, and what I'd like you to do is we're going to do something called a share pair, or a share parrot, and those are Brazilian parrots. I want you to find somebody near you and have a discussion with them about a couple of questions, and I'll tell you those in a moment. And then when you see me raising my hand, I want you to raise your hand and stop talking. So step one is to find somebody. If you need to get up and stretch your legs, that's great. Find somebody and talk about these two questions. You know, what needs to open up in your NGO to work with a free agent? Or if you are a free agent, or if you're thinking about being one, how would you ideally work with an NGO around your passion? Okay? So it's time for a share pair. You need to talk to one another. And watch me for when I raise my hand, because that's your cue to stop talking. Go. Okay, so self-organizing without top-down control. Okay. So hopefully you got to talk to somebody, make a connection, get to know somebody, and maybe this is the very beginning stage of building a network, finding some reciprocity and getting to know other people and how you can help. And it starts, and this is how we start having small changes make a difference. Okay, so this is called the I Can Make Better Choices chair. And this chair is a photograph from my son's kindergarten class. And when I went into the classroom and saw it, I asked the teacher, what is this? Is this something to shame the children for making a mistake? Or what is it? And she said, sometimes kindergartners talk with their hands or they talk with their feet, and they need to sit down and reflect in the I Can Make Better Choices chair how they could have better handled the situation without their hands or their feet. Okay, and I said to her, that's a social media best practice, kind of reflecting on something that, a decision that could have been made better. Let me give you an example. This comes from an organization called Moms Rising, which is a network of mommy bloggers and their mission is to make the U.S. pass family-friendly laws. Things that are good to working parents, working mothers, like getting paid sick days for moms when your child is sick. So, and they've done a lot of different campaigns, and one of their first campaigns was to call attention to children's health care reform. It was a big issue in the U.S. And the idea was they wanted to get these very busy moms to make videos of themselves talking about this issue and put it up on YouTube. They got 2 videos. Well, that failed. Okay, so rather than feel bad about it or say, it's all your fault, it's your fault, they decided to figure out, okay, what went wrong here? And they started talking to some of their members, and they said, and their members told them, we're really busy people, we don't have the time to make a video, but you know what? If you had a video up there already and we could just customize it, we'd do that. So that gave them this idea to launch a campaign on Mother's Day. In the U.S., we celebrate moms on Mother's Day. And we have a video that we have Secretary Clinton announcing Mom of the Year. And you could go up and you could type in your mother's name, or your child could type in their mother's name, and then send it to them through email. And they had 1 million people share that video. Oh, and by the way, it also included an advocacy message around getting paid sick days for mom. That was in there too. And they had 250,000 people sign up to be members. And that spectacular success would not have occurred without a spectacular failure. They understand this, especially with social media. So they have something that they do called the joyful funeral. Okay, funeral are not usually joyful, right? They're very sad. What is the word for triste? Triste, and we cry. So to take the stigma out of something that doesn't go right with social media, anyone on staff can call a joyful funeral on anyone else's idea or tactic that didn't work. And they actually go through a process where, is it time to order flowers? Is it time for us to stop doing that because obviously it doesn't work? And then when they are burying the body, they start to talk about why it didn't work, using their metrics and thinking about how they can improve it the next time around. And the reason for that is 3 things could happen when they try something new. They can fail. They can have an incremental success, or they could have a mind-boggling, dramatic success. But if they don't try something new and experiment, the dramatic successes won't happen. And they won't learn through their failures. So, next share pair, okay? And this time I want you to get up, because I feel we're tired. It's the end of the day. I want you to get up and find somebody that you haven't really talked to yet. And I want you to talk about, what do you think needs to change to make learning a habit in your organization. So I want you to get up, find somebody, discuss that question, okay? And then when you see me raise my hand, I want you to raise your hand and stop talking, okay? Levite, find someone to talk to.
No, essence. They're talking about the soul. The soul, like how are people in Cambodia, and you still believe that people, the mankind, we are still lying with humanity.
Maybe we can get them to,
It's talking about something spiritual.
But yeah. Oh, this. Silenzio. Silence. Silence. This is very surprising because usually people do not want to talk about failure and how to fail. And I see, hopefully you were talking about that. So great. Okay, so I'm going to talk about one really important skill. For how many of you are actually doing the social media, actually on Twitter, doing Facebook, using the tools on behalf of your organization? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you use email? Okay, all right. Okay, so this is, I think, going to become very, very important here. We do our social change work on the best tool ever invented for procrastination, okay, and distraction, okay? And it's very easy for us to distract ourselves from our purpose, or at least it was for me. I used to get distracted all the time, so much that when I started tracking my time, I realized I was not spending it as wisely. So social media can be distracting, but it doesn't have to own your attention. So I'm going to give you a quick quiz, okay? So I want everybody to, I'm going to ask you, make a statement, and if you answer yes to it, I want you to start keeping track of how many yeses you scored, okay? Because the first step is self-awareness. Question 1, when you open email or do social media tasks, does it make you feel anxious? Okay. Oh, that's good. When you are seeking information online, have you ever forgotten what it is in the first place you wanted to accomplish? If you answered yes, keep track. Do you ever wish electronic information like email and social media would just go away? Do you experience frustration at the amount of electronic information you need to process daily? Yes or no? Do you sit in front of your computer for longer than 30 minutes at a time without getting up to take a break? Okay. Do you constantly check, even in the bathroom, on your mobile phone, your email or your Twitter or your Facebook? Okay. Is the only time that you're offline when you're sleeping? Yes or no? Okay. Do you feel that you have trouble concentrating after being online? Yes or no? Do you get anxious if you are offline for more than a few hours? Yes or no? Do you find yourself easily distracted by the online resources that allow you to avoid other, maybe more important, pending work? Yes or no? Okay, so think about how many yeses you had, okay? How many questions you answered yes to. Okay, there's 10 questions, so you could have from 0 to 10, and that's your score, okay? So, on a score from 0 to 10, okay, with 0 being you're very mindful when you go online, and a 10, you need a lot of help right now, okay? So, 0 to 3 is mindful. So, raise your hand if you score between a 0 and a 3. Okay, stand up, stand up. I just want to see the count because I'm curious. I want to see how different it is in different countries. Okay, all right. So stand up if you score between 0 or 3. Now everybody stay standing 0 to 3s, and everybody take a look at who's standing because these people know mindfulness online and you need to go talk to them. You know, sometime tomorrow, go talk to them if you're still seated and find out what their secret is, okay? All right? Okay, so anyone who scored 4 to 7, stand up. Stand up. And actually, this is where I see most, this is similar to other countries, except for maybe, okay, so, all right, so I want like two or three volunteers to come on up. If you scored a 4 and 7, do we have a volunteer? No volunteer? No, okay. Any volunteer want to come up? Oh, here, give him a hand. Okay. All right. Just right here, fine. Okay, so, tell me your name and your organization if you want to. I'll hold them.
Okay. Meu nome é Elson e eu estou trabalhando com a metodologia do Dragon Dreaming, mas com várias organizações, nenhuma específica.
Okay. If you score between 4 and 7, it means you have some really good habits and some really bad habits, okay? Do you know what the bad habits are? Okay. What are your bad habits?
Às vezes eu fico, pela quantidade de informação... Às vezes, pela quantidade de informação que a gente tem disponível, a gente fica querendo aprimorar e aperfeiçoar cada vez mais, e acaba demorando muito tempo. Então, isso que você falou a respeito da procrastinação é muito verdade, porque ao mesmo tempo que você tem acesso a uma vasta gama de informações que podem te ajudar a melhorar, você toda hora tem esse fluxo de informação, isso faz com que você fique parado, às vezes estagnado, sem seguir em frente.
I have the same problem. Okay. And here's, and I need, and you know what I did? I trained my attention to be mindful. Oh, I'm looking at information. I'm wasting my time. I don't need to be looking at this information. My goal was to do this, and I stopped. And the other thing I did is my phone, my cell phone has a timer, and I had it beep me every hour. And I did that because I wanted to remind myself, am I on purpose? Am I on task? Am I spending my time on social networks to make social change? Or am I just wasting my time? And you know what happened? After about a couple weeks, I started being very mindful of it. And I was able to just really focus my attention on doing my social good work. But I want to thank you. Okay, give them a hand. So, as the internet becomes more pervasive in our lives, this is going to become more of a problem. And, I should tell you, that's the people that scored above 7. You guys, you need help. I'm not going to call you up. You know who you are, okay? And I'm going to share a link with the hashtag that will give you a lot of tips, okay? And if you want to, you can email me privately, and I'll be glad to help give you some tips. Okay, so here's the important thing with networks, though, is that we need this focus to making sure that our time is spent in a purposeful way. You know, like if you have this habit with your email, how many do this? Refresh. Yay, new mail. Oh, it's spam. Delete. Refresh. You know, if you have a bad habit that you've gotten into, be mindful about changing it, but also know that building networks and building relationships, you have to sometimes have serendipity. You have to sometimes follow a link and not know where you're going and make a new connection. But you just have to be mindful that you're not going to spend every single hour doing that of your work. Okay? Serendipity is important. Okay, so what we're going to do now is 1 moment of silence, okay? And I'm going to time it. And I want you to think about, you can think about some of the things I've shared with you. You can think about much of the wonderful stories and ideas and content that you heard for 5 hours before this point. And I want you to take the 60 seconds of silence to think about that one thing, that one idea that you can do when you leave here, that you can make a commitment to doing. And I'm going to time it. I'm going to ask for no talking. And just 60 seconds of silence. And you can, and not looking at your devices or tweeting or answering your email. Just really reflect on the day and something you can apply. Okay, how often do we give ourselves the luxury of a moment of silence to think about our work and reflect back on, what we've accomplished either for the day or the last year or the last week? And one of the things that I have put into practice over the last couple of years has been to take 5 minutes at the beginning of my day and 5 minutes at the end of my day of silence to think about, at the beginning of the day, what do I need to accomplish to reach my purpose, to do social good? And I think about it at 5 minutes at the end of the day, what did I actually do? And if I didn't do those things, why? And how can I ensure that tomorrow is going to get better. So I want to end with just say how that you all have this amazing opportunity here to start sort of a revolution of good by changing your individual behavior, influencing others and friends around you, influencing your organization to change, and to redirect that energy towards making the world a better place. So I want to thank you, and I've left a good chunk of time for questions. So do we have questions? Is everyone so exhausted? There? Thank you.